Hello everyone, and welcome back to a Backlot Banter box office in review for the month of August 2023, the year of our Lord,
Hey.
David Zaslav.
No, wait, no. Well, I mean, now he's apparently his company's making money. So
Yes. Well, to some extent,
Yeah,
he's making
sure.
money, but we'll get into it all in due time. We are talking about, of course. Actually, I said August, but I meant July. We're in August,
Yes.
looking back at July, is what I meant to say, and obviously that includes Barbie and Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, and some ancillary things that may or may not have made money.
Yes.
But we'll get into all that in due time. But in the meantime, I want you to subscribe to Backlot Banter. I want you to like this video. I want you to comment down below what your thoughts are on the July box office phenomena that was Barbenheimer, or other movies that were released then.
And provide your predictions for what the top 5
Thank you very much.
highest opening movies of August will be.
Yeah, we're a little far in, but we're going on the honor system here. You can take some information. We don't really mind. It's okay. We forgive you.
Don't worry.
Now,
It's not their
I also
fault.
want to say that no, it's not their fault. I also want to say there's a link in the description for our Discord server. There, you can talk about movies, video games, anything that you damn well please in there.
Whoa.
Talk to us if you'd really like to.
Talk to me. Whoa.
We'll be talking about Talk to Me in just a mo here. But first, Tucker, let's take a look-see at what the top 10 domestic openings were of July 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And not much surprise here. We all know. We know.
Well, we know now. I think what was
We do know
interesting,
now.
and as our predictions will reflect, we were pretty off on what we thought would be number one. But Barbie took it so clearly and handily, it's not even funny. I mean, usually this is what we say when we're looking at a month and we're like, yup, a Marvel movie came out this month, and nothing else came even close to that number one spot. But looking at Barbie and Oppenheimer, which obviously we all know released on the same day, but they were the top 2, and it's even kind of not even close within the top 3 from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Barbie with 162 million, Oppenheimer with half of that at 82 million, and then Mission Impossible at like 2/3 that at 54, or 2/3 of Oppenheimer's. So it's a crazy month, but also if we're just looking here, I mean, this top 5 is pretty solid. We have 5 movies that made over $20 million.
It's all pretty good, and we'll get into the Barbenheimer weekend phenomena and what it was and what kind of records it broke.
But we already did,
rounding
actually, in our Barbenheimer Secrets Revealed video.
Yes, the breaking down the magic of Barbenheimer.
It's like a tabloid cover. Barbenheimer's Secrets Revealed.
Whoa. But Tucker, as you mentioned, the number 4 and 5 here are Insidious: The Red Door with 33 million and Haunted Mansion with 24. And the rest of that top 10 is number 6, Sound of Freedom, which we didn't see, but we will be talking about because that's a box office phenomenon unto itself.
That we're covering this month.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Talk to Me at number 7, Joyride at number 8, The Miracle Club at number 9, and it's like a Kathy Bates like
movie,
old ladies going on an adventure movie.
Okay, good for her.
Yeah. And the first Slam Dunk at number 10.
Okay, well, let's see how wrong we were, because last month, Tanner, you and I placed our faith in one Mr. Thomas Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie and
Thomas Mapother III.
Yeah, and we thought that handily Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 would be the number 1 highest grossing on its opening weekend movie of July. And boy, were we wrong.
We were wrong. And I do want to talk. We will talk about it and what went wrong with Mission Impossible when we get to it. But I seem to remember there was a bit of a kerfuffle when we were making our July predictions last month. And I was talking about how when I first made them, I had Mission Impossible at number 1, but I wanted to rearrange them and put Barbie at number 1. You wouldn't allow it. You wouldn't allow it.
Because the Mission Impossible had already come out at that point.
That's true. It's a fair point. But in adjustment, I even said Barbie $100 million was my number at the end of that, and that was even exactly. I was still undershot it by quite a bit.
By 2/3,
And then, so our top 3 are all jumbled.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Well,
top 3's all jumbled.
Top 3 are all jumbled, but if you, I guess, were maybe allowed to put Mission Impossible down, I think you probably would have put it at number 2, not number 3.
Yeah, probably.
But you also got the order right of everything else. The only difference on our list being that I had slightly more faith in Haunted Mansion than Insidious, and I don't know why. I guess maybe I thought that Disney marketing budget would give it the slight edge over Insidious, an Insidious movie that no one gives a fuck about. But it turns out that horror movies, people like seeing horror movies no matter what they are, and no one gives a fuck about Haunted Mansion.
Well, no matter what they are, as long as it's not Haunted Mansion.
Sure, but okay, yeah.
It's a family horror movie. You know, there's ghosts and ghouls about.
Yeah.
Jared Leto's in it. That's a horror movie in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tucker, you also added something else here, which I find interesting, which is looking at the cinema scores of July. And the only A+ of the month was Sound of Freedom. Again, cinema scores are based on audience coming out of the theater, so you got to think who's going to go see Sound of Freedom opening weekend, and what are they likely to give it?
Exactly.
Explanation. They're in case in point. Yes. But we got some A's. Mission Impossible, Barbie, Oppenheimer. Yeah. Oh my God, all fantastic films over in that A department. B+ for Talk to Me and Haunted Mansion, two films that I would
say I have a discrepancy between the two of them.
A bit of a stratification in quality for me personally.
Though also we are again talking about here. Does this movie appeal to its audience? Does it work for its intended audience? And I mean, we're not the intended audience of Haunted Mansion, so works there. Yeah. And then Joyride at a B- is interesting. I think maybe kind of like horror movies. I think raunchy comedies probably have a hard time getting like A cinema scores, so a B minus might be totally normal for this. But also, this is really the first time that I've like paid attention to cinema scores in this way. So B- for it is fine, and then C+ for Insidious: The Red Door, which is bad.
Because that movie's bad.
Oh, absolutely it is. I'm thinking that I want to, over the course of the next few months, polish up how we're going to be comparing all of the movies, sort of in a giant thing at the beginning before we get into each of them individually. I started with cinema scores here. Of course, I also could do a comparison of how well they did Rotten Tomatoes wise, or other ways, because we've really been comparing them just how much money they've been making and not how well they've been reviewed. I'm trying to think of maybe a way that I can combine all of the different metrics into one thing and like
an index
and make like the BLB meter where it's like what did best and what did the worst in a given month.
I like that. But you know, the A+ for Sound of Freedom notwithstanding, this is also like a breakdown in kind of how popular these movies are generally, I would say. I mean, I guess you have the upper echelon of Mission Impossible, Barbie, Oppenheimer. Then you go the next step down for Talk to Me and Haunted Mansion. I would put Insidious in that popularity in that level
Insidious
as well,
is definitely that
and then Joyride down at the bottom because no one saw it.
Yep. Well, Tanner, let's jump into something that we have no personal experience with. So this is going to be the least informed that we are about talking one of these movies, which is of course Sound of Freedom, the surprise hit of this month and surprise hit of this summer, because with a total of $164 million domestically within 1 month, Tanner, this is one of the top 10 highest grossing movies of the year.
As we will discover when we look at our updated top 10 at the end of the video here, yes, it is little spoilers there. It is number 10 for the year so far.
Yeah.
And still on its way. I think actually this movie has moved to VOD now, but it has yet to be released and is being released in just a couple days in some overseas markets. You see there, it has made no money internationally.
Yeah, I wonder how it's going to do. I don't know what the marketing was like. It had ostensibly no marketing here. But it's obviously a movie that doesn't need marketing, and word of mouth is really what is spurring it on to be a success. And I think this is one of the most interesting stories of this year, because this movie is a resounding success across the board. Good scores across the board, A+ cinema score, which is very rare and hard to get, and over 10 times its budget already, about 11 times its budget.
Yeah. And I just wanted to break down like the story of Sound of Freedom, not the story of the movie, but like the behind the scenes what happened here, because it is kind of fascinating in its own way. So this movie was completed in 2018.
That's crazy. It's 5 years ago, Tanner. We hadn't started college.
It was a 20th Century Fox production at the time, but after the Disney merger with 20th Century, it was shelved. And then eventually the distribution rights were purchased back from Disney by Angel Studios, who, this is their second feature, overall and of the year. They also released His Only Son back around the Easter season,
which I believe was a crowdfunded
Yeah.
faith-based story about Jesus' life.
So yeah, this place, Angel Studios, has sort of found.
And I also believe that
this.
popped up in our top 10, whatever month that
It
came
did.
out. Yeah.
It did. So they have sort of found this marketing niche sort of strategy to get box office successes, and mounting box office successes, especially with now Sound of Freedom making 11 times its budget, and that includes, yes, as you mentioned, the pay it forward model, which, as I said, we have not gone to see it, and we probably will not. But it has a message at the end of the film that, as I understand, is Jim Caviezel, the star of the film, talking to the audience in kind of like a reverse thanks for coming to the movies thing that we see a lot today. It's like a, hey, thanks for seeing this movie. It's about child trafficking and about how it's bad. Go online, scan this QR code, and buy like 10 tickets. And then for people who may not otherwise be able to see it, and that's a bit of a controversy here, Tucker, is has $164 million worth of people gone to see Sound of Freedom, or is it inflated by this pay it forward? Maybe some angel donors to Angel Studios buying massive amounts of tickets, selling out theaters, but not really.
Well, I know the answer to this actually because I did the research by listening to Charts with Dan Merle, who interviewed the guy who runs Angel Studios Theater Connections, and he says that none of the pay it forward money goes into box office total until someone actually claims a ticket, and then it just counts like buying a ticket any other normal way. So this is an actual amount of money here. There's no tomfoolery going on.
I have to say, I have to push back. I have to question. Several people have documented empty, supposedly sold out empty theaters for Sound of Freedom. So, hey, Mr. Angel Studios, what's your explanation there?
Yeah, who knows?
And then on the flip side of that, there's the flip side conspiracy of people going to see Sound of Freedom at an AMC theater or something like that and accusing AMC of shutting off the air conditioning or leaving the lights on the whole time or shutting off the movie in the middle of its runtime or something like that. People saying it's the deep state, it's the woke cabal trying to sabotage Sound of Freedom. To which other people who go to the movie theaters more regularly say, that's just what happens sometimes when you go to the movies. I saw run by minimum wage people.
The beginning of Beast with no sound. I saw Elemental with the lights on. They fucked up the beginning of Avengers Endgame for me. It's like, this just happens sometimes, even in the biggest theaters.
Well, Tucker, are you sure that wasn't the woke cabal?
It could have been.
Yeah, it could be the deep state trying to sabotage Elemental.
And Beast, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
But we will be keeping an eye on Angel Studios because this is now a known quantity to us. His Only Son was kind of an anomaly. We weren't quite sure. Of course, it was their first feature. But now that Sound of Freedom is the success that it is, whatever Angel Studios does next, we will have to keep our eye on it as people who want to be able to predict what the box office is going to do. There's a high chance that it's similarly successful, especially because now they'll have a marketing budget.
Well, yeah. And you think about it, like, if the people who took part in this Sound of Freedom phenomena see on their TVs
from the studio that
brought you Sound of Freedom, I actually was going to look up. I think let me Google this real quick. They have other movies in production right now. I was going to find this real quick. I was looking on their Wikipedia page. And because they were largely in TV as well, or TV, and they were also responsible for The Chosen One, which we were familiar with at the end of last year, popping up in our top 10 as well. And if I look through here, Tucker, do you have any other thoughts on Sound of Freedom as I try to search for this?
I think that it's just interesting that in a summer season of the biggest movies competing to each of their and almost all of their detriment, a movie that appeals to a different demographic is able to grab a bucket load of money. In where we were kind of like, all these movies are kind of eating each other's lunch. None of them are really that successful. And a movie that we didn't even know was going to happen, and frankly, most people probably thought was going to be canceled forever, is able to be one of the biggest successes of the summer. So it shows that it is oversaturation in one particular market. And
absolutely,
if other studios or the studios that we know are able to produce films that appeal to different demographics, they're able to still bring out plenty of people and lots of money to the theaters, as opposed to giving us a bunch of superhero and action movies and sequels, which are going to cannibalize each other.
Yes. I did find they have 2 films in the works right now. One is an animated movie about the biblical hero David.
Right.
I assume that's going to be aimed at a child demographic. And, Tucker, Angel Studios is going for the 2023 three-peat. They have another film coming out December of this year called The Shift, which is a sci-fi film starring Neil McDonough and Sean Astin. It's about a guy who is being shifted between multiple timelines, and they're trying to get back to their main timeline. The villain is known as the Agent of Chaos.
Now, are they doing this to find Jesus, or is it because of the devil or something?
Not from this brief description from Wikipedia, but there may be undertones, there may be mentions. Who's to say?
That actually sounds kind of interesting, all things considered. And we will certainly have to keep an eye on it. I think that it might not appeal to that same demographic, but it's interesting to see Angel Studios, who has been entirely faith-based up to this point, and that's been their demographic they've been pulling towards, making a movie that, from our first reading of the Wikipedia page, doesn't seem to be appealing to that demographic, which is good for their diversity of output, but it also might not be good for that movie's success, because unless they're able to use the money coming in from Sound of Freedom to properly market, what was it called again? The Shift?
The Shift.
Then I don't think that movie's going to be particularly successful, because if you put
I think so
time travel sci-fi movie from the studio that brought you Sound of Freedom, neither market is going to want to see that.
Fair point. That's a fair point, Tucker. Okay. Tucker, let's talk about Insidious.
Yeah.
Insidious and The Red Door.
Yep.
Now, this was something that both of us were underestimating, I think.
Definitely.
I projected this at, what did I have this at? 25 million, and it ended up making 33 million its opening weekend.
Which is not close, but not that far away.
Exactly.
But it is
outperforming. Yeah, it was a big hit. I certainly wouldn't have anticipated that this would beat an Indiana Jones movie if you asked me a month ago, 2 months ago. But it did. It defeated Dial of Destiny in Dial of Destiny's second weekend to take that number 1 spot. And it is now the highest grossing horror film of 2023, beating out Megan, Scream 6.
Wow.
Just all these other like horror juggernauts that we've had this year are being taken down by Insidious.
Yeah, now I'm actually going to do a little bit of research from our own archives here. Because I kind of want to take a look at what Scream 6 did overall, like in its opening weekend and stuff. Because I remember Scream 6 being a lot bigger deal than
I think I believe from recollection, Scream 6 had a bigger opening weekend, but Insidious has just like had legs longer than Scream 6 has, and it's like only just outgrossed it.
Oh, okay, so it's not that far away.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's like just as of yesterday, I believe it passed.
But what I really do want to check, because you're right, it's just a little bit over what Scream 6 did. Scream 6 total worldwide was 168 million, but it seems actually that the difference is that Scream 6 was a much bigger deal domestically than internationally, or at least comparatively inverse to Insidious: The Red Door, which has made most of its money internationally, over $100 million internationally. I didn't know that international markets cared about Insidious.
Hey, well, here's the thing, and maybe I need to, Tucker, can you also look what international markets it's making the most in, if you can dig up that information? Because the demographics are very interesting for The Red Door as well. Yeah. We have a majority female audience. 52% of that opening weekend audience was female, and the largest ethnic demographic was Hispanic and Latino people. At 41%, which is interesting. I mean, it's just like it just has a mass appeal in these specific markets. Yeah. It's also like a little over 50% were below the age of 25. So it is, people have aged up with the Insidious franchise as well, because it's been 6 years since the last film. January 2017 was the last key.
2018
or 2018.
Yeah, 5 years.
Excuse me. 5 years.
Or over 5 years, yeah. But looking at the box office mojo stuff here, it appears that no one particular market is really bringing in a huge amount of this. The biggest, by a significant margin, actually, is Mexico with $13 million, and the second being the UK with $9 million total, or a little over $9 million. But then everything else is just in those 4, 5, 2 million, 1 million. Like basically every country it's had a sizable presence in. I'm not familiar enough with how much money things make in the Netherlands to say if this is like a huge movie in the Netherlands.
An outlier.
But it seems like just like most countries are like, yeah, you'll go see Insidious and give it, a 1.5 or 2 million, 3 million chunk of change, which adds up when there's a lot of countries out there in the world.
Yeah, I think that this is just a franchise that has earned some horror goodwill, and you bring back the faces that people recognize back from 2010, 2012, or 13, when those first 2 movies came out. And this is the second biggest opening for the franchise since those initial installments.
Oh,
cool. So it's only second only to Insidious Chapter 2.
Oh, which is fair because also you're right, they're bringing back those the Lamberts, which we so sorely missed, which meant that Chapter 3 and The Last Key kind of didn't have a lot of going on, unless you're a real big Lin Shaye fan, which I am.
As we all are.
Which we are. Yeah. We were excited to see him in The Quarry last year. But
of course.
Highest grossing horror film of 2023 means this is nothing to sneeze at here.
Absolutely not.
You put here, Sony Pictures' first horror #1 since 2016. Now, off the top of your head, do you remember what that previous film was?
I do remember, Tucker. I wanted to quiz you.
Oh, we're playing a game here. Shit.
We're playing a little game.
Okay.
2016 horror movies. Tucker, I'll give you a hint. Okay. Or do you want to get rattle off a guess right off the bat here?
Okay.
It received a sequel in the pandemic that we both saw, and from my recollection, both hated immensely.
We hated a 2020 horror movie.
Yeah. Or 2021, I believe, is when it released.
Okay, that's different. Hated immensely.
Yes. We really didn't like this one. I really didn't like it especially. But we were not big fans of this.
No, not drawing blank.
Tucker, I can't believe you would be so blind to not get this.
Holy shit. That, of course, means that it is...
Come on, you can get it. You know it. You know it now.
No. It's got Quaritch in it.
It does. It does have Quaritch in it.
Don't knock. Don't scream. Don't
shout.
Don't breathe.
There it is.
Close.
Don't breathe. Yes, Don't Breathe was their last #1, and it's especially strange to think about that because a lot of studios have had obviously multiple #1s since then. Also, I'm not counting The Dark Tower as a horror movie.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that was more of an adventure movie.
Yeah. But a lot of the major studios have
and
had.
You're not counting the Venom movies either.
No, I'm not. I'm not. A lot of these major studios have had horror #1s after the pandemic, like post-pandemic as well, which is another thing that this is Sony's first. But like you think. Disney / 20th Century had Barbarian, that was a #1. I believe Smile was Paramount, right? Yeah, Smile was Paramount. Universal had Megan this year. This is like Sony's just coming late to the game here, and their first horror #1 since 2016.
That's a long time, man. Holy shit.
Yeah.
But good for them, I guess. I don't know.
Good for them, I guess.
Opening weekend skewed female doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Yeah. Do you think we're gonna get any more of these now since it's doing so well?
Man. I think possibly, yeah, because I think that now that you have Patrick Wilson doing directorial duties, and there's clearly a bigger market for Lambert-based Insidious films, I think, frankly, I what I'm smelling is another Insidious film, but focused entirely on the son. On Ty Simpkins' character.
I see.
Whose name is...
Okay.
Something Lambert. Kyle Lambert?
Kyle?
No,
I think no, it's not. It's I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? But
Ty Simpkins.
But that's what I'm smelling. I think that Patrick Wilson might want to take a step back into being just
Dalton.
That's great. You're such a fucking smart individual. Dalton Lambert.
Thank you.
Take a step back into just being the director. Maybe that gives him a little bit better time to focus on that and be a better director because he did not do very well this first time, in my humble opinion. Though I've also never directed a feature film. I can't imagine it's particularly easy for him in his debut. But
Yeah.
I think yes, but I think it'll be slightly different in that it'll focus on the children instead.
Yeah. All right. The July 7th, the release partner of Insidious: The Red Door was Joyride, a film that we saw months ago when it debuted at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas, and sadly did not see the box office success that Insidious did, or that maybe another raunchy R-rated comedy of this year like No Hard Feelings did. On a budget of $23 million, it has only made 14.3 thus far.
It's done.
Yeah,
I don't see it. It's got no more show times. It's kind of dead. And what can you say? But damn,
yeah,
that really sucks.
It is really unfortunate. I mean, I think this movie made some waves online when its trailer released ahead of its South by Southwest premiere. But I think the marketing just kind of fell off a cliff, honestly. And then it's coming out in a stacked season. It can't. If you're going to go see a raunchy R-rated comedy around this era, No Hard Feelings was still in theaters, and it had obviously Jennifer Lawrence, a much bigger star than any of the leads in Joyride. Even though I mean honestly, if you want like raunch, Joyride's the one to go with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. Yeah, we talked about actually how No Hard Feelings was actually lacking in that a little bit, which I think was part of why you were a little bit less pleased with it than I was. But that the two of them together make a kind of nice pairing of one leaning heavier into just really depraved shit and one of them leaning more into character-based stuff. But I liked both these movies, and I really did like Joyride quite a bit. And it's interesting seeing the writing team coming off of Crazy Rich Asians, which was one of the smash hits of 2018 and launched all their careers, to another movie that is definitely a lot more inappropriate leaning and more comedy leaning than the rom-com element of Crazy Rich Asians, doing nothing even remotely close.
Yeah, Crazy Rich Asians, by the way, turning 5 years old yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
I have my little this day in history calendar, and for some reason the Crazy Rich Asians thing was this day in history premiere. Yeah,
another sequel to August movies, Meg, also 2018.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. We're on a 5-year cycle.
This isn't a sequel, obviously, to Crazy Rich Asians, but
but yeah.
And I do want to play a tiny game with you, Tanner. Another prediction game here.
This is a fun game.
This was produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, production company Point Grey Productions. Can you pull out of your ass the 2020 movie that was their last production?
Oh, 2020? Was it an American Pickle?
It was an American Pickle. I'm incredibly proud of you that you pulled that one out of you.
Thank you. Yeah. And then they also have another one this year with TMNT, Mutant Mayhem. They produced that one as well. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
They've got a success.
It is a success. Something that's less of a success, Tucker, much to my chagrin, and just really drags my heart through the muck whenever I look at the numbers associated with this film. That film is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. On a massive budget of $291 million, it has made $200 million on that. It's at $491 thus far. Some stellar reviews, 96% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, and 8.0 on IMDb, an A cinema score. And what did that all get it? A $55 million opening weekend?
Yeah.
And substantial second week drops, and losing all of its IMAX screens to Oppenheimer the week afterwards.
Yeah.
Just, what a sad story we have here in Dead Reckoning Part 1.
And really the only thing you can point to is well, actually, it's not true. I was going to say the only thing you can point to is that it's lunch eaten by Barbenheimer, which is absolutely true, and I think the core reason why this movie doesn't have the tail that it does, but it also is a low opening just in general for this kind of movie, with the stars in it, with the fact that action movies usually appeal to that wider audience. $55 million is small for that. I mean, what was your number prediction, by the way?
I had it at 80.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were quite overestimating this movie.
I was really overestimating this, and you have to ask why. And Tucker, you're right. We cannot discount the effect that Barbenheimer had on this thing. Yeah. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I want to wring the neck of the Paramount date picker team. Whoever did this, I want to wring their collective neck. But $55 million opening is too low for a movie like this, especially when its budget has been ballooned out by the pandemic. I mean, I wanted to pull up Fallout's opening weekend here. $61 million for Fallout. So, and you would imagine that you want to upscale that. This isn't just like corporate continuous exponential growth, but this is Tom Cruise coming off of Maverick. This is the growth of the franchise. This is adding
Sure.
a bunch of new
Yeah,
faces,
yeah.
new stars, and it didn't.
No.
And I have to ask, and I have to wonder, like, is this my dial of destiny? And by that I mean, when we talked about Dial of Destiny and why it maybe didn't do so well, it was Indiana Jones isn't necessarily a franchise or an IP that is popular amongst younger people. We love Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
We love Indiana Jones, but broadly speaking, not necessarily. This appeals to older male demographics largely. And is that the same with Mission Impossible? I think it might be.
Yeah,
I think that might be the case.
I think that's a great comparison. Though
Yeah.
I do have to say that you might be able to push back against that a little bit, considering that Fallout was the most successful of the franchise, and it was 2018. Again, we're actually talking about quite a few
5-year cycle again, baby.
5-year again movies, but that was big.
It was big. It was massive. $791 million. I don't know. We're currently lagging $300 million behind Fallout, and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning is hemorrhaging screens right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
64% drop second weekend. As you say here, significantly more than previous installments, which ranged from the 32% to 49% drop. And this movie's just hemorrhaging is a great word. The amount of theaters that it's losing, the amount of tickets that's not selling is kind of impressive. Actually, I mean, us going into see Haunted Mansion or whatever and seeing people still dressing up and going to Barbie and Oppenheimer, and those theaters still sold out. And Dead Reckoning, just a little bit older than that, just no one.
Yeah,
it's not doing anything.
I had it on the Sound of Freedom slide, but Barbenheimer weekend, this couldn't even pull that number 3 slot.
Yeah.
It fell to number 4 behind Sound of Freedom. So I mean, just the legs on something like that with its scheme was not something that Paramount and Mission Impossible could live up to. Sadly, we'll really have to see if Dead Reckoning Part 2 can pull this thing out of the gutter. It can round this thing out or not. Also, whether it would be interesting to see, because I'd be much more willing to call this a success if it didn't have a budget of nearly $300 million.
Absolutely.
Over $300 million if we're factoring in marketing.
Yeah.
And that is because of the pandemic, and Dead Reckoning Part 2 is also falling victim to a bit of pandemic shooting, and now SAG and WGA strike delays in their shoot. So I hope the budget is lower, but I just don't think it will be significant.
Yeah. But excuse me, good God. I just get so excited talking about
it. Makes me sick. It makes me sick too, Tucker.
You know what? That's a great point. But what draws my eye here is that the domestic total is so much lower than the international.
Yes.
And so I really think you can put the blame on this movie not being a success towards domestic markets not being as interested in this, because that's probably a totally normal, if not slightly lower, but reasonably normal international gross there. But the domestic being that low and it not even being close to 50-50. I mean, this is like 65% overseas versus domestic. And if the domestic market had turned out to a much closer to 50-50, we would be talking about this movie making close to $600 million. So it really is the fault of domestic audiences not turning out for Dead Reckoning. This movie is not a huge success.
I did have Fallout pulled up here, and it's a similar thing with the domestic international split. Okay. It's like 70-30 for domestic international.
Okay, maybe I'm strong about that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what happened here. It's sad.
Yeah.
I still love you, Tom. I still love you, and I believe in you.
Tanner, why don't we get happy?
Okay, let's
talk about
finally
big movies, massive movies, box office record smashing, holy shit, good God movies.
Yeah.
Barbie.
What
number here do you want to start with?
It has to be the Barbillion.
It's gotta
we
be
have to talk about the Barbillion.
Oh, yeah.
Our second $1 billion picture of the year, probably the last $1 billion picture of the year. Though, yeah, well, that's fair. That's a fair point. I Tucker, I hear you, Tucker.
I see you.
Though, back in April, May, June, I would have been saying Mario is going to be our only $1 billion picture of the year. So I could be wrong.
I was saying that
could
too.
be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were wrong
Very
about
wrong.
Barbie. The Barbillion is here. It's upon us. $162 million opening weekend on that budget of 145. And then again, just a resounding yes, thumbs up. We love Barbie from critics. A resounding let's go party from critics and audiences.
100%.
89% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.5 on IMDb, and a cinema score. Just good stuff all around.
Oh, yeah.
Just good vibes from Barbie.
This is a movie that is not only successful at the box office, but also is receiving a lot of critical acclaim. And last year we saw that both with Top Gun Maverick and Avatar Way of Water. But to this point this year, we hadn't really been seeing that. And then we get two of them on the same day. And the awards buzz, now with the resounding success of this movie, only continues to get higher and higher as more people see it, more people love it, and it sticks around in the cultural consciousness. This is currently a big fat flash in a big pan, but we will probably see that flash continue to stay around. So it's not really a flash; it's a fire going on in the pan. Because this movie's having legendary holds. We have here near the bottom a 43% drop on its second weekend, which is insane because the movie opened to $162 million, the biggest opening of the year, even beating Mario and tracking above everything else this year, and frankly above all the other big movies of the post-pandemic era, even above Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water. This movie is making bigger chunks of change weekend on weekend.
Yes.
It's yet to be seen if this movie will beat those because it might not have the long legs, but at the moment it has very strong, mediumly long legs.
I also wanted to point out, Tucker, if we're talking about the legs here, from just this last weekend, the first weekend of August, another 43% drop.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yes.
And we're talking about a movie that opened to a superhero movie box office smash, a big opening weekend, things which we expect to drop in the 65 to 70 range, and this is 20 to 30 points lower than that. That's crazy.
It's insane. I want to talk about the marketing.
Yeah.
Because, as we said in our Breaking Down the Magic of Barbenheimer video, everyone wants to know why Barbie is such a success. It certainly is cashing in on an IP that has been around for generations, for decades, and multiple demographics of people know and love. Or hate, as the trailer points out as well. And that movie's for everyone, as the trailer points out. And yes, it has a star-studded cast that everyone loves. It presents itself as just a fun comedy that everyone can get behind. It has an auteur and stars behind this thing, really just kind of taking this IP title and doing what they want with it and telling a great and compelling story with it. But I have to be capitalism brained here, Tucker. I have to talk about the marketing. The marketing for Barbie. And we talk about marketing sometimes on this show.
Maybe not
sometimes. Not enough. Because it's something that, frankly, we aren't tuned into. We don't watch TV. No. We don't watch live TV, so we don't get the ads. Yeah. The most we see is, like, ads on websites. We both have ad blockers installed on our computers, so we don't get the banners or pop-ups or whatever. But the Operation Barbie Summer was something that I heard about a week ago now, or 2 weeks ago maybe. An estimated marketing budget of $150 million, eclipsing the initial budget of the film.
Oh, really? Wow, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And we say that, for marketing budget, you want to talk, like, maybe twice that, but it's more realistically often, like, 1.5 sometimes. Yeah. This is an instance where the marketing budget was larger than the actual budget of the film. And we had rollouts for multiple clothing brands. Yeah. Obviously, you had your initial ads on TV as well, but it was really the tie-ins that sold Barbie, I think. You had clothing brands, you had pink Xboxes. Yeah. You could rent Barbie's house on Airbnb, her Malibu dream house. That was a huge thing. The Progressive, I always got the closest thing I get to seeing commercials on TV is on Hulu. I don't pay for ad-free Hulu, and I always got those Progressive Barbie ads every single time. Yeah. And it paid off. Yeah. Operation Barbie Summer was a success. They started it all the way back in December when we got that first teaser trailer in front of Avatar: The Way of Water, and they just didn't hit the brakes. And it paid off for Warner Brothers.
It's crazy that they even ended up reaching into pockets of advertising that I haven't seen. Again, we're not privy to the biggest parts of advertising largely, but I was getting YouTube ads that were like Barbie Google ads.
Yeah, yes.
About like
if you Google Barbie, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try this right now. I'm pretty sure if you still Google Barbie, it like turns the whole thing pink.
Yeah, which is crazy, and that only happens to very scant few movies or projects or whatever that they are able to like reach the Google of that. But also, I remember us going to a ice cream store of some kind, and they just had Barbie everything. There was pink balloons everywhere. It was try the special Barbie incredibly sweet with lots of sugar and food coloring special ice cream flavor.
Oh yeah, Cold Stone Creamery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I've never seen an ice cream marketing. I'm sure it happens. I don't go out to eat ice cream very much, but like the whole store had been converted, and so Operation Barbie Suffer obviously paid off, and it's probably one of the most aggressive movie marketing campaigns that I've seen in a very long time.
Absolutely. And then on top of it all, on top of all the brand tie-ins and all of that, you had the decision to running up right until the very last moment of the SAG strikes, doing continental premieres. I think there were a total of 3, maybe even 4 premieres. You had the world premiere, the European premiere, the North American premiere. You have all these premieres, and you get your stars out. You have Margot Robbie showing up in these like classic, like one-for-one recreated classic Barbie outfits and stuff like that. You have Ryan Gosling out there talking about his Kenergy and what have you, and that gets headlines. That grabs headlines when you have these massive premieres like this as well. And then when you're doing 3 of them, come on now.
And it also gets international audiences more excited. I mean, I'm not particularly familiar with how world premieres are done for the overseas markets. I'm sure that they certainly happen, but I've never seen one get this kind of focus, and obviously it paid off because this has a much closer to 50-50 split. It is still skewed towards international budget, but that international gross, but that is a good thing because it just means that it's making a lot of money in both places. And this movie is breaking a lot of records, and primarily in the front of films directed by women are not period particularly common, especially not ones with big budgets, but also not ones that make this kind of money. It is the highest grossing film solo directed by a woman. Of course, we may have to make that distinction because there are, I think, 4 other billion-dollar plus films that have been directed by women. The big ones
being Frozen 2 and Captain Marvel.
Frozen 2 and Captain Marvel, with Jennifer Lee co-directing both the Frozen films and Anna Boden co-directing Captain Marvel. But then also, I think you're right. I think there are 4 total billion-dollar female-directed films, and then the next closest is Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins, and just below that. But the funny thing is, and I was just thinking about this, the fact that we can name off the top of our heads all the women that have directed billion-dollar films, or even close to that, because Wonder Woman didn't make that, is just a testament to how few there have been. Because I'd be like, Tanner, name me all the men who have made billion-dollar films. There's going to be
James Cameron.
Yeah, there's going to be men in there that you don't even know the names of that have made billion-dollar films. And so hopefully Barbie, with Greta Gerwig being a much bigger name now, and everyone involved with this being bigger names, and obviously showing that women can direct incredibly successful feature films, hopefully this gives a chance for it to balance out over the course of time. But Barbie is... The film is very pro-feminist, but it is literally making feminist waves in the world and in history. And it might be the start of a larger trend, or even if it takes a larger amount of time, we can look back and be like, Barbie did the damn thing.
And you talked about you talked about it, but Greta Gerwig has even, like, previous to the film's release, like already started like carving out like her path forward as a massive Hollywood director. Now she's signed a deal with Netflix to direct 2 Chronicles of Narnia films.
That's a problem.
Yeah, well,
we'll see if those movies. They're not going to be released theatrically, so they're not going to.
Noah Baumbach dragged her into it. I'm convinced. Noah Baumbach, he's got. Netflix's claws are dug into him, and he's like, come to the dark side, Greta. It's nice over here. Anyway, but she's talked about how she wants to be like, have an output like Christopher Nolan, who has done the Dark Knight trilogy and made billions of dollars there, but also goes on to do things like The Prestige, or even Oppenheimer, we'll talk about briefly. But right before, I wanted to talk about just some other records that Barbie has been setting, just because there's a lot of them. The one interesting ones that I pulled out here, it is now the 7th fastest film to reach $1 billion, tied at number 7 with Furious 7, actually. It's 17 days. Lucky number 7 there. And it is Warner Brothers' fastest film to hit $1 billion, beating out Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which hit it in 19 days.
Yeah.
It was also the biggest opening weekend ever without any IMAX screens.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because those were all given to Oppenheimer.
Yeah. Should we talk about Oppenheimer?
Well, there's one final thing that I think we should talk about here, which is Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie are the saviors of one of the most major Hollywood studios on the fucking planet. We have been giving Warner Brothers so much shit. Deservedly so. But and even if it's giving them shit, I'm just talking about how much they're floundering. I mean, basically every movie we talk about from them is losing a ton of money, is not reaching the highs that it can, is lower than it should be for the stars and the directors involved. From last year, us talking about Don't Worry, Darling and Black Adam, the only movies that they had the money to release, to them not...
Which is a crazy... Can we pass right over that as like a thing that we knew back then and has just become common knowledge now. But that's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
Is that one of the most storied studios in Hollywood history, more than 100 years now, only had the money to release 2 films
and they both
at the end of last year. They both lost so much money.
And then that, of course, went into 2023, where we're talking about them not having the money to put out Magic Mike's Last Dance in enough theaters for that movie to make money. And so they're losing money on losing money. And then they just... I mean, this was a Hail Mary for them. Operation Barbie Summer... Fuck it. I know we don't have the money to do this, but God, let's just go ahead with it anyway. And it's making a ton of money in its theatrical window, and that is not even to say the incredible ancillary potential that this movie has of making Mattel a shitload of money by Barbie being more popular than ever. The toy tie-ins, the advertising tie-ins, and this movie is going to be huge on streaming.
David Zaslav. You mentioned it there, Tucker. David Zaslav last week came out and said Barbie will be on Max this fall.
Yeah, of course it will.
Naturally. But that's needed after I think they lost a little over 1 million subscribers last quarter.
Good for them.
Yeah. Yes. Right after the merger, they came out that they lost 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
All right. Oppenheimer.
Same day, but this never happens, Tanner. Major successes releasing on the same day. Oppenheimer being, I think, the highest grossing number 2 at the box office ever. And this is the greatest example of counter-programming ever. We will be telling our fucking children about this when we're still doing this same show in 20 years. It is... it's one of our favorite movies of the year. It's one of the highest received movies of the year. It's no doubt going to be alongside Barbie, but I think stronger than Barbie in the awards race this year. I mean, we're in history in the making at the moment, Tanner.
Yeah, it's I put some other Barbenheimer facts just at the end of this after the initial Oppenheimer facts here. It is the largest opening for a Christopher Nolan film. It is currently his 5th best performing film of all time. I think if my sort of projections can be correct, it'll probably end up being number 4. I don't know if it'll hit the highs of the Dark Knight trilogy or even Inception made like $800 million worldwide. Yeah. But it's currently the number 11th highest grossing R-rated film ever. Might cross into that that top 10, I
probably
think.
Will. Yeah.
And it's the 81st best second weekend drop. Barbie was number 7. We didn't really say that last time, but they both came into the top 100 with Barbenheimer weekend. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy stuff here, and I think it has sort of just cemented the fact that Nolan, after something that wasn't necessarily his fault, it was more Warner Brothers' fault with Tenet last year, is a name that gets people in seats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And kind of one of the only ones, because we even talk about some of the other great directors, people like Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, their recent films that weren't like IP, they don't make that much money. I mean, The Fabelmans lost a ton of money last year, and Martin Scorsese has recently in the past had to resort to making movies with Netflix because no other studio would give him the money to make The Irishman. And and Christopher Nolan is putting out awardsy, heady, serious films that are making significantly more money, both domestically and international, of course, overall, than most of the IP-driven stuff this year and in recent memory. And it's just really impressive to see a movie like this from a creator like he is be able to be successful in this quote-unquote niche, because it's not a niche. It's a huge amount of people that want to go see it. And what I'm smelling from this, though, is I don't think he'll ever have to make a IP movie again.
IP movie again?
No, because he's his own IP.
Honestly, no.
If he's making $100 million budget movies,
yes,
I'm staring at the camera because
that.
Jesus Christ, that's a low budget.
That's so crazy. I want to talk about
and
it.
He's making,
continue.
Let's guess around 650, 700 total on this movie. Even if we're going to 200 being the marketing total budget for this, making over 3 times that budget, of course he doesn't have to make more than this. The IP movies aren't making their money back, and he's making a ton of money back.
Yeah, $100 million is crazy. Let me read it. Can you remember when we were talking about just a moment ago? Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
$300 million.
Oh, yeah.
Indiana Jones. $300 million plus, potentially.
Fast X?
And this, Fast X.
Like 275 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, no, wasn't it like 340?
Oh, no, wait, yeah, that one I think I'm underestimating. Let me just
double
check.
Then you have Oppenheimer. One of the best looking, best production design, no like weird green screen moments where you're like, that person's definitely not there, for a third of all of those movies' budgets. And I mean, you talk about, we often talk about directors as like artists, obviously, and their artistic output, but they are also the logistical head of getting their movies made. And I think we had to give it up for Christopher Nolan here for achieving that artistic and logistical feat of. I think it was Emily Blunt who before the SAG strike obviously was giving an interview about Oppenheimer, and she said that they were just go on this set. Like there was no like faffing about. There was no downtime. Christopher Nolan wanted to keep this thing under budget, wanted to keep it under control, and like got it wrapped up and done and polished in record time, and it paid off for him in the long run, for Universal having to spend money on this film and then still making a fantastic film.
Absolutely.
One that many people are recognizing is one of the most polished, most complete, most holistic visions of the entire year, maybe of the last several years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that it's great to see 2 movies that are fulfilling creative artistic visions and are very bold in the direction that they're going, from very different creators and very different styles, but having not equal amounts of success, because Barbie is the much bigger success, but having equal scales of success for the potential that they had and surpassing that potential. And if you look at the very bottom here, I think the last fact that we haven't read is this was the 5th biggest weekend of all time, because not only with these movies out, but movies bringing in money with things like Mission Impossible and Sound of Freedom. Movies are just making a lot of money right now, and even into last weekend. Of course, we're liable to end up talking about this next month, but Meg 2 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem both making great amount of money. Barbenheimer has like brought up the theatrical voice. People are just caring to go to movies more, and I think this is also. I don't exactly know off the top of my head what these other weekends are, but I'm pretty sure this is the highest grossing weekend with 2 movies bringing in a substantial amount of money, because the other ones are big things like Force Awakens and Avengers Endgame that are just on their own sucking up all the box office oxygen. But we have a nice 2/3 to a third split here with Barbie and Oppenheimer making their money and combining to make something almost as big as the biggest movies that have ever released.
I want to just note as well, it's the 5th biggest, but like if you look at it, I have it pulled up right here. The first biggest weekend ever, Avengers Endgame and Captain Marvel were the top
sure.
the big ones.
Yeah, and Captain
and
Marvel
that was
also in its like its 6th week or like something like that.
Exactly. Number 2, Infinity War and A Quiet Place. No Way Home and Encanto at number 3. Force Awakens and Alvin and the Chipmunks Road Trip at number 4. And so these are ones where like there was a great stratification in the release dates between these two movies. These are boom, same weekend releases at number 1 and 2.
Yeah. And also that played into their success, the idea of seeing them both, even if you're not particularly interested in Barbie or Oppenheimer. I mean, I had a group of, even without me, a group of 20-year-old dudes who don't see that many movies a year. A group of my friends went to go see Barbie. People that you know that are 50 years older than us went to go see Barbie. And Oppenheimer is being pulled along for that ride. Of course, it appeals to a different demographic, but if you're selling yourself into the bit, you can't half-ass this. You gotta see both, and that paid off. The movies aren't related. Well, they just came out on the same day, and that's insane.
I don't even know if this... I don't know if these numbers are correct. This is just like me pulling it from my memory of something that I saw. But I think based on like ticket analysis and like AMC actually released a statement and numbers of like how many tickets they had for both. I think it was somewhere around like 18 million people did Barbenheimer that opening weekend.
Which contributes very, very heavily.
Which contributes massively. All right, Tucker, let's talk about something that's not good and didn't do well and sucks.
Yep.
Just returning to, sort of like the regular tenor of the box office year. Yeah. Haunted Mansion. What I did for Haunted Mansion was I found it weird and just a bit compelling and interesting to compare it to 2003's Haunted Mansion. It's been 20 years.
That one's starring Eddie Murphy, I believe.
They're trying their hand at Haunted Mansion once again.
Yep. Can't wait
from
for
the studio. Can't wait for Haunted Mansion again in 2043. And just how it did comparatively.
Sure.
And bad is the answer. Haunted Mansion 2003 was a flop, by the way. It actually, unadjusted for inflation, it had the same opening weekend, about 24 million.
By the way, that movie is called The Haunted Mansion. This one is just
excuse me.
Mansion.
Okay. It's like it's a Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad
actually.
situation. Adjusted, though, that's $40 million it made opening weekend, which Haunted Mansion 2023 would have killed to make. But just some other things here that I have. The adjusted total gross for 03 Haunted Mansion is $300 million.
Wow.
Tucker, is 2023's Haunted Mansion going to get even near that, do you think?
No, God, no. No.
Yeah. Also, want to mention, neither of them released, like, around Halloween.
Yeah.
03 Haunted Mansion released at, like, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Odd.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. So, 03 Haunted Mansion, The Haunted Mansion as it's known, was not a great success, but it did fine for itself. Like, it didn't lose them a ton of money like this one will. But I also just did the budget research and adjusting for inflation. Exact same budget adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
$90 million was its actual budget, but adjusted for inflation, that's $149 million. So it costs the exact same to make comparatively. And this one is just going to make them even less money.
Yes. And why? Because people don't care.
No one cares.
We talked about the marketing, but apparently Barbie and Progressive is just a better matchup than State Farm and Haunted Mansion.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Legendary insurance and movie tie-ins. Haunted Mansion is not on that list.
No, it is not. It is not. I also wanted to compare it to some recent Disney ride-based films.
Great.
The examples being Jungle Cruise and Pirates of the Caribbean. And in their second week of release, which is where we are with Haunted Mansion right now, Jungle Cruise had made $65 million. Mind you, that is 2021, middle of the pandemic, also available on Disney Plus for free.
Where we saw it.
And Pirates of the Caribbean 5 had made $115 million.
Yeah.
So,
and that is one of the lower grossing Pirates movies. Because the Pirates franchise went downhill. And also, of course, they wanted this to be their new Pirates, and they wanted to make this a franchise. That's not fucking happening. That's not. And you know what? Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad it's not happening.
Tucker, as someone who just recently started rewatching the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, it occurred to me that, like, how different the filmmaking sensibilities. I just watched the first one. Yeah. That one from 2003 again as well, actually, which is crazy that they did two ride-based films in the same year. how different their filmmaking strategy is from 2003. Because you look at that Pirates of the Caribbean movie, there's real ships, there's costumes, they're on sets, elaborate sets, beautiful, intricate-looking sets that move, and they're fighting on top of a big wheel or whatever. And what are we doing in Haunted Mansion?
I don't know.
We're in
you and I have to watch
green screen
the Haunted
house
Mansion at some point just to see what the difference is. Because what's interesting is we talk about this movie not being a success, but comparatively, the Haunted Mansion being a lot bigger of a success. That one didn't even get sequels. So if they weren't happy with how that movie performed and couldn't make a franchise off of it, what chance does this have? Absolutely none.
No, absolutely none.
But you know, a movie might be a big franchise, Tanner.
Oh, God, I hope. God, I hope.
Talk to me. This is A24's latest horror movie. You and I saw it. We both enjoyed it quite a bit. And on a $4.5 million budget, it has already made $26 million. And I can't imagine that it's going to squeak past 40 or something. I think this is just, a comfortably performing indie movie. But again,
they'll have to be fine with just multiplying their budget by like 10 times. They'll just have to be fine with that.
Yeah, being a big success for a new pair of directors, of course. They already have been given a much bigger movie, and we'll see how that influences their direction of what movies they make going forward. But I also think that their passion for this movie is clear, and the success of this movie is also clear that there is a taste for this, of a different flavor of horror from a new pair of voices from, frankly, a different country. I've never seen an Australian horror movie before. And they want to make this a franchise. They've got, as you told me, and as I paused while you were saying it, buckets and buckets and pages of lore. And ideas of this to be a franchise and different stories told in this universe, and I could not be happier from every angle.
Yeah, the Rocka Bros, I listened to an interview from them, and yes, they said that they have an entire lore bible about the Talk to Me universe.
I wish you waited to tell me this until right now. Imagine my live reaction.
I probably should have. But yeah, there's Easter eggs apparently hidden on the hand about stuff that will relate to potential films that could be made. And there, as of 2 hours ago now, a sequel has been greenlit.
Oh, really?
At A24. Yes.
Are you serious? I didn't know that. Serious. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, yeah.
I was doing some research for this today. It was 1 hour ago. Variety. A24 greenlight sequel for Talk to Me.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And you mentioned it, Tucker. We didn't mention by name, but they're apparently handling the new Street Fighter movie. Yep. And I haven't actually watched any of their YouTube content, and maybe I should. But apparently they are very much. A lot of their YouTube videos are very much in this heightened violence, fist fighting sort of style. Even delving into the bloody gore stuff as well as they flexed in Talk to Me. So yeah. Dig it. I think they'll do a. Cannot wait.
This is gonna be so much fun because you can just imagine. Talk to Me does well, awesome movie. They're happy with this. They got handed Street Fighter before this. Street Fighter, if they continue their track record, is hopefully not going to be made for a huge amount of money. Hopefully it'll have some really cool action. They've proven through their YouTube videos they can make cool action on next to basically no budget for YouTube. Imagine what they can do with a hopefully not a huge budget, but a good amount of budget. And then they're going to go back to making horror movies, and Talk to Me is going to have a double the budget of what Talk 1Me had, and
to Talk to Me,
and it's just gonna keep getting better. They make a Street Fighter sequel. Maybe they pump out 2 Talk to Me movies back to back, and we get them back to back years like Scream 5 and 6.
Yeah,
Tanner, these are
shaping up.
Maybe my new favorite directors, just going forward. Just I can't wait, man.
Tucker, is it possible that your 2 favorite working directors right now are a team of friends / brothers who started out in YouTube?
Oh my god.
Both of them, the Daniels.
Talk to Me, not my favorite movie of the year. No, but I think that these 2 have so much potential, and I can just smell it starting right here. But you also have here second biggest wide debut for A24.
Yes, of course.
Which is crazy. Because there's a lot of A24 successes, but not many A24 movies launch into wide release.
Right away, yeah.
For some reason, Talk to Me did. And it obviously paid off for them.
Absolutely it did. Yeah. Okay, Tucker, that's it. That'll round out the movies for the month. I want to talk headlines. There were a fair amount. There's a theme that runs through a lot of these headlines, and that is the strikes, the coinciding SAG and WGA strikes that are going right now. When we talked last time, I I correctly predicted the SAG would go on strike, and by that I mean it was all but imminent, but hadn't been officially called by the SAG leadership. Now it is. They went on strike on July 20th, I want to say, something like that.
I don't know particularly.
But obviously it was the day of the... No, it must have been earlier than that, because it was the Oppenheimer premiere.
Yeah.
That, like, the day it happened, all the stars walked off during the Oppenheimer premiere. But because of this, it's had some wide-reaching effects, largely in some theatrical slate delays or potential delays.
Yeah.
Sony was the first domino to fall. Some of the delays include Kraven the Hunter, was supposed to come out this October, has now been delayed to August of next year.
Yeah. Tanner, this is next year's Blue Beetle.
It is next year's Blue Beetle. Ghostbusters, Untitled Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel, as it has yet to be named, and will probably still not be named for a while, was supposed to come out around Christmas time. It is now coming out in March of next year, taking the place of Beyond the Spider-Verse, which has been delayed indefinitely.
Which means another year and a half for that movie or something.
Yeah,
at
probably.
Least. And one thing we don't
probably
mention here, which I think is funny, but is that Gran Turismo was also delayed inexplicably by 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Possibly to get out of the way of Barbenheimer still having really solid legs, which is actually maybe a good idea.
Smart.
Because it's not. It's gonna be in a better spot in 2 weeks than coming out this weekend. But it's just funny to be delayed by 2 weeks. I just think that's entertaining.
It is very funny, especially when tickets were already on sale. People had tickets to Gran Turismo already that they got canceled because they delayed it by 2 weeks. Anyway, Warner Brothers Discovery is also looking at some films, some of its big premiere stuff that might be on the chopping block. There was initial reports that Aquaman 2 was amongst these films, but apparently they want to stick that one for that December release date. They cannot dump any more money into this thing, I assume. Yeah. Apparently it's awful. Apparently they've had to do 3 rounds of reshoots on it because it's awful. Yep, so that's more budget. They're who's to say how many Batman are in this film at this point?
Or were at one point.
But ones that actually might be delayed include Dune Part 2 and The Color Purple, which are both end-of-year releases for Warner Brothers.
No, it's interesting. I mean, they definitely want both these films, which have great casts, to be promoted by those casts.
Yes.
But, and frankly, and this is unfortunate for the unionizing workers who want better treatment, and I want them to have better treatment. Movies are doing fine without that promotion. So I don't know. I think Dune 2 could be totally fine, successful if it was released this year. We'll see, man. We'll see.
Apparently, this is again from reports from movie insiders especially from Warner Brothers. They are very invested in having the stacked cast for Dune Part 2 promote the film.
Oh, absolutely.
That is something that they exactly. And apparently they're going to make a decision on delay by next month.
The fact that we've got one movie coming out soon that has Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, Timothée Chalamet, and Zendaya in it, that cannot be undersold.
Yeah. Just all the big names.
Yeah.
Apparently a decision will be made on that delay by September.
Okay.
Is what they said.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's gonna be cutting it close.
Yes.
We've got Dune trailers playing right now. The marketing cycles, frankly, should start soon.
Yeah. And, I skipped over it at the very beginning, but apparently there's also reports, there's lots of reports of everything, that the studios and the AMPTA, PAPAM, TPA...
Jesus, I don't even know what you're trying to refer to, but...
It's like the Producers Guild or whatever, who represent the studio heads and producers, are potentially willing to start negotiations with SAG, but not WGA, only SAG. I don't know. So if that happens, they might get it under the wire for promoting Dune 2. They may not. But in other news, on this hot union summer, 50 on-set VFX workers at Marvel Studios have voted to unionize.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I would love it to.
50 is not a lot,
No,
granted.
No.
50 is not a lot, but
how many Marvel movies there are, and how many VFX workers work on them? No, 50 is not enough to do that. But we will see.
Hey,
that'd be great if that happened.
I agree. It would be great because in the long term, it would be better for the VFX workers and for the VFX of the movies, most likely.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Speaking of VFX full movies, Wonder Woman 3 is apparently happening and set in the DCU. What does this mean? How are we going to figure this out? Is Gal Gadot just reprising her role as the character? Is it connected to the previous movies? What the fuck is happening?
Are James Gunn and Peter Safran just placating Gal Gadot?
I think that is totally possible. Will this movie ever happen? Considering will the DCU pan out? They added a letter.
Yeah.
Pan out in the way that they think it will. I don't think so. But a Wonder Woman 3 made by a competent team and with a returning Gal Gadot could also be a big success. If DC gets their shit together. So this is just bizarre. But I'm fine with this. Like, it's not worrisome to me. Whatever. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Other assorted news, Christopher Landon, who you might know from the Happy Death Day movies, is apparently set to direct Scream 7.
By my research here, only 2U.
Okay.
He only did Happy Death Day 2U, but he's also a big C-tier horror franchise director. And he also did Freaky. And
of course.
Paranormal Activity 2, 3, 4, Next of Kin, and The Marked Ones.
Okay. All right.
So
interesting.
And Disturbia, which I...
Oh, the Shia LaBeouf movie?
Yeah. No, wait. I'm on writer. Hold on.
Whoa,
you're right.
Whoa.
Wind that back. Reverse it.
Okay.
He did direct Happy Death Day 2U and Freaky and Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. He did not direct any of the other Paranormal Activity movies. I was incorrect about that.
Okay.
But you're right. He did do Happy Death Day. But hey, Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day 2U, perfect continuation straight into Scream 7.
Yeah, especially if we
want a guy doing
back...
it, perfect.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we want to bring back the comedic sort of undertone of Scream, which is something I felt was lacking in Scream 6.
Yeah.
I'm all for him handling this one, frankly.
Yeah, the comedic tone of Paranormal Activity, the marked ones.
Hey, apparently that is like the second best Paranormal Activity movie after the first.
We're gonna have to binge those someday.
Well, we will do that someday.
Scream
Okay.
7.
And then transitioning out of big studio, big time, all money, all the time stuff. We had film festival lineups announced for the Toronto Film Festival, the Venice Film Festival, and the New York Film Festival. I won't go into a lot of it, but we just basically, for the award season shaping up, we have dates announced and set for big time stuff like Anatomy of a Fall, The Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar, which is apparently a short film from Wes Anderson now coming to Netflix. Priscilla, Rustin, Saltburn, The Bike Riders, Poor Things had a date change from September to December, The Zone of Interest, Maestro, and The Iron Claw.
Yeah.
So all things to keep your eyes on for the upcoming award season.
Very exciting. And we'll definitely be covering that more specifically as we return to doing our awards coverage, and also as award season starts and the movies start coming out. The big ones, regardless of how much money they make, we will give a chance to talk about them here on Backlot Banter.
Yes.
But we do have movies to talk about from last time. A lot of big movies came out last month. Some might say too many.
Too many, I would say.
Yeah,
took me. I would say
you and me. Well, look at us.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Checking in on Spider-Verse, which had released way earlier and has made more money, but not that much more. And same with Rise of the Beasts, and also same with The Flash.
$3 million
in
3 weeks. And some of these are also on VOD now.
Okay.
Actually, Spider-Verse just came on VOD yesterday, I think.
And Transformers like 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah.
And The Flash a couple weeks
while ago.
Yeah. And Elemental, not yet, actually.
No.
But making way more money than the other movies and surpassing The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Heartily
surpassing The Flash.
Actually, you know what's interesting here?
Well,
the only movie that made a really, really, really solid chunk of money is now Indiana Jones. But that's way less than it should have been making.
Right.
So it's still not also impressive.
Yeah. But it's also fair because that's like the most recent one that we talked about when the
it had only been released in 2 weeks. Yeah, for 2 weeks at that point. All right, that's fine. Nothing big here. These movies made some more money, but not much. We have top 10 highest grossing movies of 2023 updated because a lot of new movies have been added here. Mario is still at number 1 at the moment, but I believe by next month it'll probably be knocked down by Barbie. Or at least it'll be very close. Barbie showing up at number 2. Oppenheimer showing up at number 6. And Sound of Freedom showing up at number 10.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything that was knocked off? I guess maybe we can look back at last month's.
I am pulling it up right now, great. Tucker, but I just find it interesting the amount of change that happened, frankly.
3 new movies.
3 new movies on there is very compelling. Sadly, one of those is Sound of Freedom, just like taking that number 10 spot.
Well, we gotta report the facts as they're happening. We can't just say,
exactly.
Oh, well, the mystery movie at number 10. Oh,
yeah. Things that were bumped out. Indiana Jones actually moved up a spot since we last talked about it. It was number 10 last time. It's now number 9. Fast X got bumped out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Creed 3 got bumped out.
Oh, that's unfortunate, but yeah, expected to happen at some point.
Transformers: Rise of the Beasts got knocked out.
Yeah, and that movie's done, so it's not coming back.
And yeah, those are the 3 spots that were replaced right there.
And it'll be interesting to see, because I doubt any new movies will enter the list this month, but orders will probably be shifted pretty substantially. I don't know if Oppenheimer will be able to surpass The Little Mermaid. I would say personally I doubt that. But Barbie might go up, and frankly, Tanner, Sound of Freedom might overtake Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I don't know. It's winding down theatrically here, but like, yeah, it's only got like $6 million to make up,
and it's going to be released overseas, Tanner. Oh, those are only domestic. So.
These are domestic numbers, yes. So yeah, but I don't think we have much to worry about for Sound of Freedom ending up in the top 10 by the end of the year.
No.
By the end of. Actually, it still will be there by the end of next month.
Yeah, probably.
And by the end of September, and October. But November, Tucker, that's when we'll wave goodbye. Yeah.
Oh God, last year was so much fun covering like the down months of the year. And I can't wait to do it again. I can't wait.
It will happen again. Speaking of down months, August.
Yeah, look at this.
Bit of a down
here.
month. So we have big stuff that we've reviewed, actually, and has come out already, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and the Meg 2,
just Meg
The Trench.
2. Watch out.
Excuse me, Meg 2, The Trench. Those are probably going to be the biggest successes of the year, I think, as we both agree. Or of the month, rather. The month.
Well, Freudian slip there.
Yes. Other titles include The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I'm actually pretty excited for.
See.
I've always thought that movie looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
I also like the director's previous movie, or not previous movie, but a movie I saw from him called Troll Hunter.
Well, he also did Scary Stories Told in the Dark, which was his
movie.
That's
a good point. That's another good one.
Yeah. It's okay. Blue Beetle, which will be very fun to cover. I can't wait. Gran Turismo, which is going to be so fun to cover. Strays will be so fun to cover. This is going to be a fun. I've never heard of Back on the Strip.
Yeah, that's just a bit of a older star-studded thing. It's got Wesley Snipes. Yep. Okay, it's about male strippers.
Oh, great!
And like getting an old group of male strippers back together to go back on the strip.
Like Magic Mike X's Hell.
Exactly. And Bottoms comes out this month as well.
Can't wait. Yeah. And reviews for almost all of these. It'll be fun to cover them, even if they're not good, which I don't expect almost any of them to be good.
But, Tucker, how's the month going to shake out in terms of domestic debuts? As I said, some of these are already out, but I made my predictions a while ago. Tucker just did his on the honor system, talking about what he would have done a couple weeks ago. So, what I have is, and I have my numbers again, just like always, TMNT Mutant Mayhem. I said $40 million on the 5-day. On the 5-day. And then Meg 2 The Trench, I said 25. And I'm actually very close because I think it made somewhere around there. I think it made like 25, 30, I want to say.
I'll pull it up right now while you're reading the rest.
Yeah, please. Strays, I have at number 3 at 30. Okay, all right. I Strays at number 3 at $22 million. Gran Turismo at number 4 at $18 million. And Blue Beetle at number 5 with $15 million. Now, granted, I made this when tracking for Blue Beetle was in the 12 to 15 range.
Yeah.
Now it's at 30.
Yeah.
Hashtag Blue Beetle Battalion.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
The differences between our list are mainly because, number one, we're counting 5-day weekend for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which as of now we know means it beats the Meg. Sorry, Meg 2 Trench.
Meg 2. That's Trench.
But I do, frankly, I do place more faith in an opening weekend for a superhero movie doing fine, and also an opening weekend for a horror movie doing well. So that is where my bigger faith in Blue Beetle and my faith pretty much period for Last Voyage of Demeter being on this list comes from. Strays is kind of an anomaly. It's had a weird marketing cycle, and no one really cares. We'll see if comedies can put butts in seats. We have not had the greatest track record with
yes,
with already comedies this year, but it's going to be an interesting month to pan out. I mean, really, it could go any way with these, especially with these bottom three.
I think so too. Anything else, Tucker? Anything else we want to say about July and or August?
We had a good month here. I mean,
we did have a great
most of the movies that came out this month were successful. I know, actually, that's true. No, that is absolutely true. The only not successful movies were Joyride, Haunted Mansion, and Mission Possible. We had mostly successful movies this month. Talk to Me made money. Oppenheimer and Barbie made a ton of money. And Sound of Freedom and Insidious made a ton of money. So, and this might be one of the first months we can say this, but we had a good month.
We did have a good month. Hey, we did it. Look at us.
Look at us. It was our fault. We bought tickets to all these movies except for Sound of Freedom.
Yep.
And it was us. We did it. Good for us. Actually, you know what, Tanner? We didn't pay for Haunted Mansion. No,
I did.
You did. I didn't, though.
Yeah, you did.
So that's why that movie's failing.
I agree.
Tanner, thank you for joining me. This has been great. It's been a great time, great month. I'm gonna be rewatching this video so many times in the future. I'm like, God, you remember July 2023? It's crazy.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next month, not only for August recaps, but also going over how our summer predictions turned out, and maybe we can kind of loop that into a overall summer discussion, talking about the flops and the successes and how we felt about it overall. But lots of fun stuff coming. Some fun quest stuff sort of incoming. We'll see when that happens. More reviews, of course, and stay tuned right here. Backlot Banter. I kind of hijacked your outro, but I did
That's
that anyway.
Okay. Go for it.